logical descriptions of the Trinity and see how it applies to vocation. First off, the persons of the Trinity are absolutely equal to each other. That's the ontological Trinity. They have, in terms of their ontological Trinity, Jesus isn't like 2% smaller than the Father, and the Holy Spirit is like 20% smaller because he's stuck over with the charismatics. In the ontological Trinity, all three parties are absolutely equal, but there's also what we call the economic Trinity that has to do with their function. And there is a sense of subordination to the extent that the Father sends the Son and the Son sends the Spirit. So when you're talking about what I would call, we've had the creation, we're not going to get back to there. We've had the fall, unfortunately, we're not going to get back to there. We've had the redemptive work at the cross, we're not going to get back to there. But our vocation is going to be directly tied to the restoration that is in God's sort of mega plan. And the best way to do that is first paying attention to the fact that vocation is communal, but it's also Trinitarian. So that when you inherit your family business, the vocation is not just about the employment activity that you do. I guess, are you going to be the heir, the parent of your family business?
So I'm told.
So you're told.
I hadn't seen the will or anything.
Okay. I'll make you call your dad and see what he says. So Charlie's job is not just simply to secure continued employment, but it's, as a believer, to build an institution at work that is fundamentally Trinitarian, where the employees, being equal image bearers with the boss, are treated according to the dignity that they deserve because they are image bearers of God. That's the ontological equality of the Trinity. Charlie is taking into his place of work, a scrapyard, the ontological Trinity. When he decides that we're going to have a system of work that treats the peons as equally important in God's sight and in Charlie's sight as the top executives that get the Lear jets and the golf clubs and all that other stuff, right? Right. But, yeah. But at the same time, the employees operate under the economic Trinity where they have to understand that there's a person in authority over them. So that the business is built. Charlie's vocation of building a healthy business is not just about employment. It's not just about paying wages to people and keeping them alive. It's actually rebuilding that business along Trinitarian lines so that both the ontological Trinity of the equality of persons is respected and the economic Trinity of a difference in role is respected. Now, to me, that's very cool compared to running a scrapyard. Because all of a sudden, these real people are image bearers of God who are to be treated according to the terms of the Trinity. I think that's a great challenge for, especially a lawyer, when it comes to building something. So, so how do I build my marriage? Well, not very well, or I know about the 5 children. But if in fact I did it, I understand that my wife and I have an equal standing in the ontological Trinity that is our family, and that my job is to see what God's calling is on her life well enough, prayerfully enough, over time enough that I can encourage that as it moves forward. But we have absolute equality of persons in being image bearers and being called by God. But in our marriage, there's an element, we believe, drawn from the New Testament, in which there's also a differentiation in roles. Where if we respect the differentiation in roles, we're also modeling the economic Trinity. At the same time, we're modeling the ontological Trinity. And we have to live in that dynamic tension of those two things, being authentic in both. In the same way that Charlie as a boss just can't throw a fig leaf of a big benefit package and then not understand that the workers have a Trinitarian presence at work that he has to respect. So our family is the same way. All those 5 kids of mine who are doing texting while I'm trying to talk to them, I have to respect the fact that they have ontological equality with their father in terms of the Trinity, but I expect that there's a differentiation in role. Now, have they done it perfectly? Well, obviously not. They should have, because I was a perfect father. But since they haven't, we have to understand that I have to build in the same way I build my marriage, Charlie builds the company, I build my family. The DNA of the universe is this balance of a Trinitarian model that both respects equality of persons and differentiation of role. I think that creates almost a devotional sense of vocation, in the sense that what you're doing in that restoration using the model of the Trinity, is you're building what can absolutely be labeled as a, quote, Trinitarian business. And I don't think any label could be more significant than that. So does that mean vocation is equal to employment? I think no, because employment is only a subset of what Charlie as a boss would be doing in building that company. The fact that my wife and I do different things around the house is only a subcomponent of the fact that I'm trying to build the sense of God's calling on her life by being married to her in a way that I see that better than anybody else does, and the things I encourage in her are the things that the Holy Spirit is revealing about God's call on her life. Very little of this is just about employment. Since you're all fascinated in historical theology, it was actually the English Puritans who took Luther and Calvin's vision for vocation and turned it into a pure work ethic. Because now you were no longer, like Luther and Calvin, defending the opportunity to work. The Puritans, who didn't have to fight that battle, turned it into necessity to work. So the Puritans turned it into kind of a work ethic. You know, Weber talked about that in 1904. But my point is, this is a way to approach the question of vocation devotionally, by beginning to build the notion of a Trinitarian enterprise in whatever you set your hand to. Building a marriage, building a family, building a business, building a civil order. All of it devolves back to that DNA, which is the way the unit predated the creation of the universe. So I think it's exciting, Charlie, to say, all of you knew this, but in exciting ways we can take historical theology and turn it into an exciting current opportunity, okay? Because what was Luther ultimately trying to do? Vocation was a place of joy and freedom. Not just work, not just trying to find the dignity of work while I'm cleaning the toilet, not just having things to be busy about instead of my ultimate goal, which is a leisure role in the Caymans. It's joyful and freeing to find that you are working for the people of God, the community or job, and what you commit your vocation to. That's not just a question of employment. That's an incarnational, devotional understanding of vocation that is different from associating entirely with the work that I get up to do. I'll stop there for that piece.
So, I mean, I want to say, I'm going to open it up for questions in a minute, but I hope you guys got that, because I've been coming to this conference for years now, and the question that I've always hit people with is about the integration of faith and vocation, and it's how does being a Christian in any vocation, I mean, I was often asking about law or business or something like that, but in any vocation, how do you go beyond the fact that I'm a Christian in this vocation means I'm going to be more ethical and I'm going to have some sort of pietistic practice that I'm incorporated into it, like I pray with my partners twice a week in my law firm or something like that. And I mean, you know, I'm not going to say for the first time, but for the first time in my presence at this conference, we start to have at least one model of what that looks like with this Trinitarian, you know, sort of gloss we can take and read the restoration of the world through, because that is a uniquely Christian insight from Revelation. And I don't think we've ever done that before. So you've witnessed history of the Wheelite Conference today, is what I'm saying. So I will now, having build it that way, open the floor up for questions. Yes?
And the only other thing, I think the awesome Trinity, then where would Mary, the mother of Jesus, be brought into that? Because when I pray for exactly that, as well as Mary, who had that, so I apologize, but with the Trinity, where would Mary be? I also, when I write cards and things, I also add her name to be kind. So that was one question. And number two, I always pray a prayer for unity around our world, all different wonderful faiths. So those are just two thoughts and questions, if you had any thoughts. And this conference is amazing, so I said too much, I apologize.
Well, you can see clearly where the unity question grows out of the commonality of every human being made in God's image.
Yeah.
And to the extent that the church has done a better job of respecting that, I think your observations about praying worldwide for unity is entirely appropriate. That doesn't mean that there's always going to come a point, though, where unity comes up against the deep water of unity come against the shoal of the exclusive truth claims of Christ. There's a sense in which what the Bible reveals to us is that that Jesus as the truth, Metaxas, did you hear the Metaxas part earlier this morning? Jesus makes a claim to personally be the truth. And if that's true, the things that are not in agreement with him can also be truthful at the same time. That's where both misunderstanding the Christian religion and being outside the Christian religion both are in conflict with the idea of Jesus being the truth. Now, about Mary, there's only one human member of the Trinity, and that's Jesus. One of the things to think about Christ that I think is sort of intriguing, either around the tables here at Dartmouth or elsewhere, Jesus just didn't take a human body and rent it from Avis for 3 years while he needed it. Jesus is as fully human today as he ever was. The incarnation was a change in the constituent nature of God because the second Son of the Trinity added human flesh at the incarnation. But that doesn't mean he stopped being human when he didn't need the body anymore after the resurrection. Jesus is as fully human today as he was at the point of the incarnation. So my only suggestion is I admire Mary. I describe her as the first disciple. She was the first one who had to die to herself to understand how to be rightly related to Christ. Remember,